So it's time for another state high points, and this time it's going to be down in Arizona, hiking Humphreys Peak. So on my way down, I drove through southern Utah, drove through Page, Utah, saw Lake Powell a bit, and drove across an awesome bridge near the Glen Canyon Dam. If you ever have a chance to drive through southern Utah, I definitely recommend. Some really cool rock formations and stuff down there. So I drove down on June 20th, 2019. There was some giant fire going on somewhere in the country. So there was a bit of smoke in the air, but it wasn't too bad. It was still pretty clear. So Humphreys Peak is located right next to Flagstaff, Arizona. Flagstaff, Arizona has an elevation of just about 7,000 feet. I chose to just stay at the parking lot at Humphreys Peak. Slept there that night after the long drive. And then early the next morning, I left for the hike. So here we are, the tallest peak in Arizona, Humphreys Peak. I think we are going to be going up this trail right here. So it should be, as that sign said, I think 3.8 miles one way. Parking lot, there's actually quite a few cars, quite a few people I think are going to be doing this trail, unless they're doing one of the other ones. But let's go ahead and get started. So Humphreys Peak is the highest peak in Arizona, as I've already said. The elevation is 12,637 feet above sea level, which is 3,852 meters. It's the 12th highest point in the United States. Its prominence is 6,039 feet, and the round trip is around 9 to 10 miles. So when I came down here, I had read online that there was still quite a bit of snow, so I was a little worried about that. I've never done any sort of snow hiking or climbing, mountaineering, so I was a little worried about that, and I was prepared to turn around if I got to a point that I felt was a bit too risky or above my experience level. I bought some micro spikes that I was thinking I was going to end up trying out a bit, but as I got going, and as you'll guys see in some of the clips, the snow wasn't too bad. There were a few patches where you kind of had to walk across it, but nothing too scary or hard. So if you're planning on hiking this and you don't want any snow, from my experience on this trip, I would say you'd want to wait until at least like July for there to be no snow. So these first few pictures are from a giant opening right off the side of the trail as you're heading up. You see this spot in a lot of videos of this mountain. This isn't actually part of the trail, it's like off to the side, but it's a very cool, ginormous part of just giant boulders going down from up close to the peak down to like the bottom. So near the start of the trail, I ended up hiking with another guy that I met on the trail. We hiked probably a third of the way up, maybe half the way up, and then we kind of separated. I actually got lost on the trail, as you'll see in the next few clips. But as long as you're paying attention, you shouldn't get lost. The thing with me is I was sort of following my GPS and a map that I had from an app, but my GPS actually got like frozen, and I ended up taking the wrong split on one of the trails because of what I was seeing on the GPS. So I thought that I still had to go a certain direction a ways, but since it was frozen, I just kept going further and further off trail. So here I am on Mount Humphrey trail, climbing it. At least I should be. I was, but I've lost the trail, so trying to find it again. I think the pink peak is up there somewhere, so see if I can find it. Well, apparently I just restarted all trails, and I kind of had a hunch that maybe the GPS stopped working because I felt like I had gone a fair distance and it was showing me in the same position. So I restarted that, force stopped and everything, reopened it, and apparently the trail is back up that way. So I was going the wrong way due to the GPS being like frozen. So it was showing me like rotating, but that was it. If it didn't show me rotating, then I would have known that it was frozen a bit earlier. But yeah, let's head back up that way. Here we are, the saddle of Humphreys Peak. Actual peak is either over there or over there. So right here at the saddle of Humphreys Peak is a very cool view. Pretty good visibility day, even though there was some smoke. Hardly any clouds, if any at all. Massive wind! But I made it! The wind was atrocious. It was very bad. Where I was up at the peak, that should be where you get the best pictures and the best view. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to actually record or really take any pictures up at the top, except for one short clip. And I'm not really sure if I've ever experienced wind quite this bad before, so I had no idea what exactly the wind speed was. But a few days after I did the hike, I looked back on all trails where people can leave reviews, and some of the people that hiked it the same day as me left some reviews, and according to them, it was 60 miles an hour with 80-mile-an-hour gusts. So for any of you guys who have experienced that sort of wind, that is what it was like up on the peak. If I had some sort of strap to strap my phone to my wrist or something, I would have definitely took a bit more video, but like I was scared I was going to lose my phone. It would have been so easy to lose grip on it and then just have the wind take it away. And it's kind of unfortunate because the video really doesn't do it justice. The wind was insane. Like, I had to crawl on all fours for the last like 100 feet or so. So in this picture, you actually see the very, very peak. The clip wasn't taken at the very peak. I was like 10 feet away from the peak, kind of down like in a little hole with rocks surrounding me that kind of blocked the wind a little bit while taking the video. But yeah, that was definitely a very unique experience and one that I'll remember for the rest of my life. So here's me coming back down. You guys can see some of the snow patches I had to walk across. Nothing too crazy. As far as the ratings I'd give to this mountain, if you're to do this in July when there's no snow and on a day when there's no wind, I'd say it's probably about a 6 out of 10 in difficulty. There is a fair bit of elevation gain. It is about 10 miles round trip, and you do go to fairly high elevation. So it isn't super easy, but as long as you're fit and you've got the whole day, you should be able to make it. If you've never been at high elevation and you've never done like 10 miles on a treadmill before, then I'd maybe caution against this being your first time doing anything like that. The views, the scenery, and the enjoyment of this trail, I'd probably put at an 8 out of 10. Very gorgeous views. The prominence really is pretty high up, so that you can see very far out. On clear days, it said you can see to the Grand Canyon. So out of the 5 high points I've done, I would definitely say this is up there. This is up there with my favorites. I'm not sure if I would say number 1, but definitely close to number 1, close to tied, if not number 1, with Mount Elbert and Kings Peak.